go ahead and get started. Dave Mallen is going to start off with the introductions.
Hey, how's everybody? Okay, so welcome to the launch and open house for the DMV Music Alliance. Uh, we're going to present some information to all of you today that we're really excited about because, you know, both Danny and I, and we'll kind of talk about our backgrounds, have been kind of working in this space for a long time. I'm a musician and a studio owner, but also have run a bunch of organizations and events designed to kind of unite and bring together the music community here in the DC metro area. And really, what we tried to do at the beginning of the pandemic is just put some legs to that. It's basically to put some concrete steps in place that became a business plan, which became now an actual nonprofit organization that can really serve and support the entire DC metro area. So DC, Maryland, suburban Maryland, and Northern Virginia in a way that really hasn't been done before. I think everyone has the intention of being inclusive, and certainly there are some great efforts going on and have been. We want to be sort of the connective tissue that binds all of those efforts together. And so we want to kind of present our vision for that and how we can be of service to all of you, and then how we also can benefit from your support as we go forward, because we can't do this by ourselves. Those of you, I see some folks on the call who've worked with me, I don't have a lot of free time per se. So this is a labor of love that I feel is worthy of my time, and Danny feels the same way. And yet, a really ambitious thing for us to do by ourselves. So we have to bring everyone into the tent and figure out how can we move forward and make some positive change. So I'll quickly introduce myself in a little more detail, then Danny can introduce herself, and then we'll kind of launch into a presentation. So I am Dave Mallen, as I said. I run Innovation Station Music, which you can see all around me. It's a recording studio in Annandale, Virginia, formerly in Arlington, but this is my current space and probably where I'll be until I die. And I have been involved in a few efforts over the years, as I said, to try to elevate the DC metro area and bring people together. Notably, the Metro Music Source, which I started with a couple of other folks in 2009. And we had an event series where we would have meetups throughout the metro area, but our kind of home base was at IOTA, may it rest in peace. And we also had a bunch of workshops and industry panels, and it was designed to be both networking and educational in nature. And that we did for about 10 years until, really it kind of, I decided that this needed to be taken up a notch, and the DMV Music Alliance supersedes all of that in a number of ways. So it's like Metro Music Source on steroids. I was also involved with Fair Trade Music DC, trying to work with Chris Naum and Graham Smith White on some of the initiatives working towards better standards and minimum pay standards for musicians in this area. They really took the ball and ran with that for several years, but I was part of that effort. And in general, I'm just trying to always support the artists I'm working with through the work that I do, through the career consulting that I do. So that's a little bit about me. And Danny, would you like to talk about yourself for a minute?
Hi, Danny Weymouth. Some of you may recognize me from the 930 Club. I've been working there for about 10 years. But before that, in 1995 and 96, I went to a mega recording studio school. And since then, I've been doing artist management. And in both Baltimore and in DC, and I just found that a lot of the resources that artists need here in the Washington DC area are just non-existent. And so I have been interested in kind of helping to fill in those gaps ever since. And then about 10 years ago, I started working at the 930 Club, and so now I'm doing that as well as the DMV Music Alliance stuff. That's about it.
All right. Awesome. So I'd like to share my screen with you now and just kind of lay out the agenda for today and then walk through some of the initial data points and information we want to present to you. So let's see here. Going to give me 1 second and I'll pull that up. Okay. Can everyone see that? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Right. Yay, technology. Okay. So for today, we want to talk a little bit about what is the DMV Music Alliance, how and why did this get started, and what is our mission and vision? How are we structured? Because really this is the first time that we have an official organization representing the entire DMV music community and has a real organizational structure. We are actually a nonprofit corporation registered in DC. We're working on getting our 501c3 status and have a number of irons in the fire there. But we didn't want to wait any longer for that. We wanted to really reach out to the community and get people involved. So talking about the structure of our organization, our areas of focus, ways you can all get involved, because that is a critical piece of this. And then we'll have some Q&A. And throughout, I'm going to sort of sprinkle in some polls and ask for some feedback. And I'd love this to be pretty interactive as well. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So yes, there it is. So what is the DMV Music Alliance? Basically, we're a nonprofit that was founded about a year ago, seeking to elevate DC area music, fostering unity and cohesion across the entire DMV. So whether you live in DC, Virginia, or Maryland in the suburban communities, providing financial assistance. So that will be, we'll talk about that in the form of grants to those who need it in this area, those who have been struggling through the pandemic, and it's never really been a huge money-making opportunity to be an independent musician anyway. So we need to find new sources of income and be creative about that, since income streams have dried up over time in recent years. So providing educational, networking, and other knowledge-based resources. Later on, Danny's going to talk about some of the web properties that we have and some of this portal that we've created and we're continuing to develop that will have a bunch of really cool resources that I think musicians and professionals are going to really benefit from. So then really what we want to try to be is the glue. I say glue, connective tissue, but pick your metaphor that binds our diverse music community together. So we have a rich history across the entire region. We have current talent that needs to be nurtured and acknowledged and brought to the forefront. And our vision really is just that the best way to do that is by all coming together under one tent, pooling our resources, sharing knowledge, seeking to create conditions for a more thriving music economy through advocacy, as well as identifying and filling in gaps in our music infrastructure where they may exist. So we'll unpack that. Okay, and so what's the genesis of all of this? Basically, Danny and I reconnected after a few years, beginning of the pandemic. We were part of the conversations, the initial conversations that we're having within what is now called the DMV Music Stakeholders Group, and these are some folks who have a great track record of working with DC government in particular as well as other entities to try to improve conditions for artists in this area, for get money for venues from local government. A lot of great advocacy, a lot of great coordination with local leaders, and so we wanted to. We were part of those conversations, and then we kind of broke off and realized that we need we wanted to do something that we've always wanted to do, which is build a more comprehensive alliance that would include that organization, the stakeholders, as well as any other entities. We saw some of these things popping up. We had various, like there's the DC Music Summit, which has existed for a few years, but is now kind of hearing the same call to promote more of their nonprofit goals. And so we kind of saw, that this was a pivot moment. We saw that this was a moment to kind of rethink how our music economy works going forward. Personally, and I believe Danny has been part of these conversations as well. I've attended a lot of the music policy fora, the Future of Music Coalition policy summits. A lot of these conversations have been happening for many years, but change is hard. Change, people fear change, as well as, just there's institutions that, you just don't want to break down necessarily. However, I think this is an opportunity where everyone is looking at things differently, looking at things afresh. So we wanted to seize that opportunity. We didn't want to launch too quickly because we really wanted to put some thought behind this and talk to a lot of people, a lot of musicians, a lot of stakeholders, and industry leaders. And so while we realized this was needed to kind of support and sustain people through the pandemic, of course, at that time, we didn't know how long that was going to last. We realized, the music community was disproportionately impacted by it, right? We didn't have the safety net. Once the gigs dried up, we were kind of figuring out where are we going to get money from, and not everyone was able to get PPP funding. They weren't necessarily set up as a business. Maybe the music was a part-time job, and they still had a W-2, and it was a little complicated to navigate the federal stimulus that was coming through the CARES Act. And so we kind of thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could find other sources of income, grow the pie of where money is coming from, and in the process, we would necessarily have to teach our community and our individuals in our community how to better demonstrate their value. So through professional development, through connection and networking, and this sort of Big Ten philosophy of like, let's all help each other. Obviously, the cream still rises to the top, but we believe that all boats rise, if we help each other out. And that's always been my feeling about this metro area, and why I've planted my roots here, in the music space, because I do feel there's a community, and yet I don't think that it is as cohesive as it could be. I think when you look at the go-go community, we have, jazz, we have folk, there's everything here, frankly. But we need to all come together and learn together, share knowledge, and move forward together as a region. And that's really our vision. So presumably you agree with that in principle, and that's why you're here. So really we said, all right, how do we bring in money from the outside? Okay, so if we develop our value, we create these partnerships, we can actually get donations with a 501c3 status from foundations and philanthropists. There's a lot of money out there. People are looking to spend it, believe it or not, even with the pandemic. Quite a few, corporations actually did better during the pandemic than before. And we think that because music is something that everyone loves universally, that it's a pretty easy sell to find some companies that want to be part of our positive change and really see the growth in our area. So we'll be starting with local foundations and philanthropists. There happens to be a huge amount of them headquartered here, and then we'll kind of broaden to the national pool of institutions. So we've refined this over the course of a full year to really be sort of just the connective tissue and to support with resources, advocacy, and again, creating synergies amongst all the initiatives that are currently existing, but where there are underrepresented communities, we will stand up like a task force or a team to address that particular area. And I'll talk more about that later when we talk about area liaisons. So essentially, we just want a unified, thriving local music ecosystem, bring all the talent into the tent, all the energy, all the diversity, and just harness all of that. So main goals, we have 6 main goals. I'm going to focus primarily on the first 3 because those are really the short-term goals that we're working on right now. We have about a 5-year plan. But unite in harmony. Okay, so to talk about that a little bit, really we want to bring people together in conversation, in collaboration, and a word that came up at the DC Music Summit, which I really like, co-opetition. I think that is something that we have to acknowledge is possible and realistic. The idea that we are self-interested as musicians in the music scene. We do need to make our own way. We need to book gigs for ourselves and make enough income, but with an eye towards giving to the community, which will then give back. And so that's sort of the philosophy. Where we see efforts to create better conditions for music, whether that's in the regulatory schemes, parking zones, loading zones, noise ordinances, you name it. There's a number of things we could be working on, and some folks already are working on. We want to synchronize those efforts across the area. So if and recognizing that not every community has these problems. So loading zones are not going to necessarily be a problem in Loudoun County, where you have lots of space and you're playing at a winery. But that is something that we could easily see Arlington County taking up as an issue, where I, recently talked to one of my friends who's on, Joe Danner's on. We were just talking about how it's hard to park outside of a gig in Arlington. Okay, so why is that? Why should musicians be, forced to deal with that and possibly get parking tickets? I know a band that I work with says they play, in the Wharf, either Pearl Street or what have you, and they just have to factor in the cost of a parking ticket, or the cost of parking in the garage, which is like $30, into their take for the night. And that those types of things are probably fairly easy to address, but require a coordinated effort and more consistency across the board, because we want that to be the case across the whole region, not just one particular jurisdiction. Okay, so the Alliance building team, which we need to change to ABT, we basically are, oops. So that team would be focused on the unification efforts, and I want to say that in the most positive way. We're not trying to create some kind of umbrella that everyone reports to us. We're simply trying to bring people together in conversation and collaboration, and we want to hear from all the musicians and music stakeholders and music industry professionals through our town hall meetings. And so we're going to have we plan to have 2 town hall meetings per month. One of those is going to be oriented towards music industry personnel, people who work at venues, people who are stakeholders more on the business side of things, not just artists performing at venues. So I guess to be a little more specific about that, I'll get to that in a minute, but let's see here. Yeah, so essentially, give me 1 second. I'm gonna find my notes on this. Yeah. So basically, the point of the town hall meetings is to strategize about how we can improve the local music ecosystem and discuss ways we can work together to achieve whatever objectives we're trying to achieve. So one is going to be, again, more on the, let's invite government officials, let's invite, venue owners and things like that to talk about more of those structural things and that part of the infrastructure. And the other is going to be more hearing from the grassroots people on the front lines who are playing at venues or working at venues, that kind of a thing. So in the future, those are going to be in-person events that are going to be great opportunities for networking. So we're looking forward to that. This particular team, the alliance building team, is going to kind of take that up and just figure out, the best way to run those meetings. Gather information. So yeah, we talked about the town halls. We have to know who we're talking to. We have to know the makeup of the community. And actually, on that note, I just want to put up a quick poll, and this is going to be just the first poll where you live in the DMV. So I assume everyone's a little familiar with this by now. I see some results coming in. Cool. Still coming in. Suburban Maryland in the lead. So this is really fascinating. Living in Northern Virginia, I kind of assumed I would have more Virginia folks, but look at that. Okay. I'll leave that up for a second. And then we'll pull that down. Yeah. So can everyone see the results?
No.
No? Okay. So DC 17%, Maryland 67%, Northern Virginia 17%. So share results. Maybe you can see it now.
Yep.
Cool. All right, I am just going to capture that because that is really interesting. At least to know how we are connecting with all of you. So as part of that, we want to understand, what are the issues in your specific communities? And obviously that breaks down to a more granular level too. It's not just about Northern Virginia. Fairfax County is going to have a different set of rules. They're going to have, their venues and the artists that live there. So we're going to want to have, issues that bubble up that can be addressed globally. We want to kind of address them that way. But things that are specific to those communities, we need to actually have area liaisons and folks that are specifically focused on coordinating with those local leaders and those local venues. And we'll assist with kind of making all that happen. Part of this, though, is also about doing a survey where we've had a bunch of surveys over the years. We've had artist revenue stream survey from the Future of Music Coalition. We've had various folks within the community put out surveys. We want to have a more comprehensive, up-to-date survey that kind of is the DC Music Census was the most recent one. We want to do another one that we're going to put together with input from all of our stakeholders in the area. And so be looking out for that, because that'll help us develop programs that serve you more appropriately, more effectively. Okay, provide financial support. So this is something that, when asked what one of our main priorities would be, or first priorities would be right off the bat, we kind of want to throw a lifeline to people who are struggling as a result of the pandemic. So that is really most of the focus right now. Is yes, we've got our website up. People can write blog posts, and we'll talk about that. There are things that can be happening, and Danny will talk about some of that. Our portal is still being worked on, but in the meantime, we want to be gathering information. We want to have these town halls, and we want to also set up a fund where we can administer grants to those who are, and they would be need-based, to those who are struggling. in our area. So the first thing we really, in order to do that, the major fundraising efforts, which will happen down the road, we need our 501c3 status. We had a fiscal sponsor, and then at the last minute, the fiscal sponsor didn't have the bandwidth to work with us. So we are in talks with a bunch of others, and we hope to have either that lined up or our own 501c3 status very, very soon. And then we can have, we can receive tax deductible donations. One of the things that we've seen is generosity is contagious. So I want to tell a little story about something that happened with me personally. I don't know, some of you probably know that back about end of September 2020, my studio was burglarized, and about 90% of my equipment was stolen. So that was quite an ordeal, as you might imagine. And long story short, I ended up recovering a few of the items, and was able to sell those items because I had already been paid out by insurance. I didn't need two of them. So I had a little bit of money that came in through that I said, you know what, I'm going to take this and put it into a fund and issue what I called the Pay It Forward grant to an artist that needs it, who needs to make a record, or is really just struggling because of COVID. And that's something that just felt instinctively good for me to do. So I issued that grant, and one of the winners is here today, Joe, who I mentioned earlier. What was cool about it is when I put the word out about it, other people in the music community said, hey, can I donate to that? Can I contribute to the pot? This sounds like a really cool thing to support. And before I knew it, we had another $2,000 raised so that I could issue a second grant. And I say this only to illustrate that I do think that even within our community, which, we're not, flush with tons of disposable income, right? But at the same time, people wanted to give and support other members of the community. So in that spirit, if we take that and apply and extrapolate that, I do think we're going to be successful in bringing some new funding into the community. And that's just where we think we should be looking right now, because even though gigs are back, they were never going to be, super high paying opportunities, and lots of other income streams have dried up or diminished. So we want to set up this relief fund. We will set this up. In the meantime, before we get the 501c3 status, we may be doing a GoFundMe campaign or the like to try to just have some just short-term instant relief for some folks. And so keep an eye out for that, and we appreciate you spreading the word about that. We'll also be providing information on other grant and financial relief opportunities. So we can only do so much, but there are arts councils, arts commissions, and National Endowment for the Arts. There's all kinds of opportunities out there. Sometimes it's just a matter of going to one place where you can find out about all of them. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this overall, but we want to develop some trusted resources where I've seen some of the Facebook forums like DMV Musicians. A lot of people are looking to connect and say, hey, I need an artist for this open mic, to feature. I need a bassist for this. There's a lot of that kind of going on, and sometimes those posts don't meet with the rules of the group, and they are seen as promotional. That's understandable, but I think what we want to do is provide a platform that is explicitly for networking and referrals. And so we would have a music community, an online profile database for folks in our music community, artists, music professionals, what have you. And this would also be an active referral service where we could actually facilitate some connections. Hey, I'm looking for this. Well, instead of just the entire group responding, we could actually weigh in and say, hey, I think you'd be a good match for this guy. Um, he plays this genre of music, that kind of thing. So again, connecting the dots, creating these kind of synergies and fostering collaboration. Also a knowledge base, which would be industry how-tos, career guidance, professional development, uh, papers and articles that would be teaching you how the world of licensing works, or how, we've had a lot of questions about, how performing rights organizations are set up, and how can I make the most of my royalties. Those types of things are commonplace in music cities like Los Angeles uh, and Nashville, but it's not necessarily all around you in DC. So we want to put that in one centralized repository that'll be searchable, and we would be available to help you navigate that as well if you had questions. So another thing that we've sort of taken on recently that I'm going to have Danny talk a little bit about is the DMV show calendar. That's sort of the working title of it, and we're still sort of putting together the tech on this. But the idea would be to bring in all of the uh, import all of the data from all of the venues and as many venues as possible in the area, and have one centralized repository of concerts and gigs. So Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So currently up on our website, there is a show calendar platform, and there's a couple of different things that we are offering. One is for, we will be getting some people involved in this. And so if you have the technical skills and want to get involved, we're looking for people who can help write APIs. And basically people who can help us reach out to all of the different venues and work together so that we can import their shows directly into the main calendar. The other thing we are offering is if that's not possible with a venue, or if someone just wants to add their own show, you can actually go through the front end and submit your event. It does not go through any sort of approval process. It goes up automatically. And if you do that, you also have the option of basically booking tickets through the platform. So we can, if anyone's interested in that, we can talk more about that. So that's it for the calendar.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, Danny is our guru on all things web, and has put together a really cool website. And if you haven't seen it, um, just go to dmvmusicalliance.org and just poke around a little bit. There's some cool information and ways to get involved, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, so moving back to our presentation. All right. We also have a blog, which all of you would be able to submit blog entries. And then we would approve them, and they'd be posted on the website. So we're hoping for content to be generated by the community. We will also be generating content, articles of interest, and news. We had one recently about the reopening that's happening in 3 days. So we also have our Facebook discussion group, which is it's going to be a wide open discussion. We will moderate it, but it's going to be topics related to how can we improve our music scene, how can we better educate our artists in the area, things that map to our goals, to the organization's goals. So that's the DMV Music Alliance discussion group, which is already up on Facebook. And then advocacy. So we talked a little bit about this. Essentially, where there are organizations that are already doing advocacy, for example, the stakeholders group, we are here to support and amplify what they're doing. As we just took on some of the responsibility for the DMV Music Calendar, which was coming out of that group, but also some other sources who were asking for something like that. So we're here to support those initiatives, and where we can learn lessons from, success stories, things to avoid, obstacles that they may have faced. We're hoping that we can take that information, those best practices, and then translate those to other underrepresented, currently underrepresented communities in our area. So primarily in Maryland and Virginia. So as we move forward, we're going to be bolstering those efforts, but we're also going to be looking at what more can we do in terms of a few things. So government funding and programs, partnerships with corporations and nonprofits. We sort of believe that DC has a very particular ecosystem, and the industry here is largely government based, and we have a very unique. It's an area that we just want to make sure that we take advantage of what's here and tap into what's special about the DC area, and not try to make it into some other music city that may have different industries and maybe a different demographics. So we want to partner with corporations and nonprofits in our area, and support creation of arts districts. When for example, we've heard a lot about inner ear studios in Arlington. This is kind of a hot button topic right now, in these kind of circles, because they are talking about raising that in order to build an arts district, which may seem sort of ironic because you'd be destroying something that has a lot of artistic output and over a history of artistic output to create something new that would be a new version of that. We need to make sure that we preserve that history and preserve the artistic output, the real organic, output, and not just put a facade over it and call it an arts district. So we'd be working towards those types of things, as channeling the feedback from our community. So we don't have a particular policy agenda. We want to basically tap into what is the zeitgeist, what are people feeling overall, and how can we assist in making those things happen. So music-friendly policy initiatives and mitigation of regulatory barriers we kind of talked about. Hold on one second. Got it. You see all my notes here. Thank you, Dan. Let's try to do this again. Boom. Better?
Yep.
So at this point, let's see. I want to be able to.
Hey, Dave, go back one slide.
Oh, we missed one.
Yep.
You want to take this one? You don't have to.
Sure.
I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I agreed to be the mouthpiece today. So, but Danny, you can figure out how can I go to my second poll. I have more than one poll, and I'm only seeing the first one.
Okay. Do you want to do that now? Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah, I want to go to the second one. Okay. See if you can figure that out and let me know. All right. So going back to demonstrate value. So we want to develop programs that educate musicians and music professionals on how to effectively engage with and demonstrate their value to the greater community. Everyone loves music, but I think there's some misconceptions about what it means to be a musician, and how much money we make and the conditions that we work under. From my experience, it's always been the case that I feel sort of underpaid as a performing artist. I think wages have been stagnant for at least 25 years relative to inflation and cost of living. So these are issues that need to be addressed, and some folks are already addressing them, but we want to amplify those messages. So how do we establish more of a relationship with venues so that we can collaborate and cross market as a community and not adversarial, not an adversary. So we want to be able to work with venues as well as other local businesses that for whom for which music is kind of a side thing. Maybe it's a bar or a restaurant, and music is just something they do, but you know you're kind of shoved in a corner, and it needs to be more a part of the budgeting for a business, and it needs to be something that we consider PRO blanket licenses and how that interacts with our ability to make royalties as songwriters. There are a lot of issues there. So if we engage in the dialogue with folks in our community, uh, activating volunteers to do that, and then having these conversations, I think we can have a more thriving, synergistic music scene. Um, so that's really the philosophy here. We have a rich history in DC, and there are lots of organizations, I think, that are set up to honor that legacy and preserve that legacy. We want to do that, but also focus on the now and the future. So what talent do we have now? The punk scene, really, really cool, uh, amazing, talent that we saw for a number of years, coming out of DC. It's not really a thriving, industry today. However, we have some amazing hip hop artists. We have so many great artists. We need to figure out who's here today and how do we usher in the next era. Um, and letting that scene kind of develop organically as great music towns have. Danny, any info yet?
I'm not a host, so I don't have access.
No, I just want to kind of research like how to switch to the different poll, but that's okay. I can just tell you. Polling. Oh wait, I got it. I figured it out. Yes. All right. So here we go. Launching a new poll. How do you make income from music? As a performing artist, as a music industry professional, educator, other, or none of the above? I don't know. Looks like we got a lot of performing artists and kind of an equal number of music industry professionals, some educators. Okay, results still coming in. So okay, so here we go. Results. Definitely more performing artists, music professionals a close second, and obviously that's a broad category. We will want to unpack all of that and make sure we're serving everyone as we go forward, and then music educators. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, it's the first time I've done a poll, so thanks for bearing with me on that. Okay, so at this point, I just want to open up a little bit of conversation and see if anyone has any questions on anything we've talked about so far, or anything they'd like to add at this time. And as a springboard for that conversation, these are some topics that we expect to be delving into at future town hall meetings. We have our first town hall on July 7th. And of course, right now they're virtual. So let's hear from you and your thoughts on all of this. If there's something that we aren't addressing, or if there's something that you particularly like or don't like. So just if you know how to raise your hand, Let's see here. I'm going to, is there a raise hand option? Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute yourself, and we'll see how that goes. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, hi. My name is Maria. I actually manage several bands, including my children are actually a professional working band. They travel all over the world. And we're actually in Loudoun County, so it's interesting that you gave a shout out to Loudoun County. But the question that we always run into is, it's been really hard locally to make a presence for, the bands that I work with. We actually do much better. We get paid better in other locations like New Jersey, Florida. It's just interesting that, being a local band and being brought up in the area that it seems like the local music isn't as valued as it is in other locations. So to be able to see something that would kind of highlight that, I mean, I absolutely would love to be on the committee. And Danny, I just reached out to you via Facebook.
Yep.
But to be able to show that many of these musicians, it's not just showing up the day of the event. It's not the 2 or 5 hours that you're putting in. I mean, the show itself, but it's the, the tens of hours, the hundreds of hours, the thousands of hours that you put in just to rehearse and prepare a really great show. It's also maintaining equipment. It's the things that venues and bars and so forth don't take into consideration when they're paying the musician. So helping to kind of elevate that conversation, and also elevating just in general local music and the value of local music, I think is very important.
Awesome.
What kinds of music do your bands do?
So my bands some are original, some are cover, some are across the board, but they're, everywhere from country to alternative to punk rock. I kind of termed it as melodic metal. I have a band that's strictly instrumental, but they are a metal band, and I get quite a few gigs for them. So it literally is all across the board.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Dave, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, a couple of things. Thank you for sharing that. So I know that in the DMV Music stakeholders recent call, there's been discussion around about all of this, a basic minimum income for musicians, but more broadly, a recognition that you may have gone to school for music, and the cost of going to get your education. There are all the hours of load in and setup before a gig, and then breakdown, and probably meals all around that. I mean, there's just not a full recognition of all of those costs. And as you say, rehearsals that maybe, prior to the day of a gig, no one's compensating you for that. And so we need to kind of build in all of those costs and figure out, how do you make a living in this area, which tends to be pretty expensive, and do your job without working 3-4 jobs, which can diminish your creative output. It can actually, be, so exhausting that you're not actually able to write. You're not actually able to produce the things you want to produce. And so I think there's we're at an inflection point now where I think we can have those conversations and redefine some of those relationships. And again, if we partner with venues and make it more of a cross-pollination, cross-marketing effort, then it's not all on the artist to do all the promotion. At the same time, venues, we understand, it's hard to promote all of your shows. There's a lot of cost to that too. And so I think there needs to be an understanding on both sides of what the expectations are, what the responsibilities are, and just figure out a plan together. And I think you made one other point I was going to speak to. But in any case, I hope that addressed, and I appreciate that. Does someone else want to chime in on that topic? Ryan?
Hi. Yeah, if I could just tell you a little bit about myself, because I'm curious, maybe you guys could give me some pointers on what to do. So I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., literally. I'm the oldest of five. And I started piano lessons when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I've been playing all the way through until present. I was playing earlier today. So I was trained in classical. My mom and my 2 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters, we all took piano lessons. And my dad works at the Library of Congress, still does. So I kept playing. I became a church pianist as a teenager, just kept playing. Last year when COVID happened, I lost my job working at a radio news company doing admin work. And so then I came home. I mean, I live by myself, but my family's nearby. So I started a YouTube channel, and I ended up writing a song called COVID Stricken. I have a sister who's at Children's Hospital, and wrote that song. But I don't have a lot of technical equipment, songwriting equipment at home. So it's like just me and my iPhone, which is what I'm on now. So then I heard about something called Baltimore Loves Talent. And it was like a talent show on Saturdays. Typically, they would play like a half-hour show where musicians could, like, you could send in a clip, and then they had their half-hour show on TV, because my TV antenna could pick up like Maryland channels and stuff. So they would play this half-hour of different people singing songs they wrote or other songs, or I mean, you could do anything. You could do juggling or whatever. But it was like a half-hour slot, and every weekly they would give out a winner. And so one week, one of my songs won, and like I haven't studied songwriting. I just kind of figured it out, wrote a couple other songs. Eventually they had a grand prize winner. I didn't win, but so I've want to keep developing and keep playing, and I would like to be a songwriter and a professional musician, but I've spent most of my time like playing by myself. I mean, even playing 2 instruments at the same time, like playing at the piano and putting another instrument in my lap and playing both at the same time. But I never been in a band. And I'm interested in continuing to write and songwrite. I don't have a music degree, but I play pretty well. And I was trained in classical, and I'm interested in blues and other stuff. There's a restaurant that near the White House where, I'm not going to give you the name right now, but they have music there. And so I played the piano there, but they wouldn't pay much. And the guy ended up, I think, wanting me to do it full time, but I didn't do it full time. Like they needed a piano player on like Fridays and Saturdays.
Sure.
And they would only give me like $80 plus a meal plus tips. Like they put a thing on the piano and you could put tips in there. So again, I'm wanting to do music and develop that way, but I'm wondering if you have any ideas. Like I'm kind of open to anything, even country or rap or whatever. And I listen to The Voice and America's Got Talent. I will say also that in terms of my family history, I've got a number of military people on my mom's side. My dad's uncle was Dr. Benjamin Mays, who was president of Morehouse College, where he mentored Martin Luther King. And he was also dean of the Howard University School of Religion. So that's my great uncle. Again, I've been a school teacher. I've been a lot of things, and I've been unemployed for over a year now after I got laid off. And so I think my unemployment ran out like this month or so. So I kind of eventually, I'm not broke. I have money in the bank, but eventually I'm going to need money.
Not to interrupt you. I think this is probably a longer conversation we could have offline. But I think that you make a great point that you want to get into songwriting, you want to develop your skills. You're just not sure how to get started. And you're not sure kind of what steps you need to take. My first recommendation is the guy next to you, Jay Keating, would be a great person to talk to. The Songwriters Association of Washington provides some great resources for that. There's Jay, and Kelly Diamond is here as well. There's Kelly. So I would talk to Jay. You can chat them directly through the Zoom here. Maybe just do it
Okay.
to Kelly because Jay's driving. But you know, you can find out what workshops are available, and possibly do some get some peer review from other songwriters in the area. And I think that would be a good place to start. And then I'd be happy to talk with you offline about some other options for you as far as professional development. Cynthia is here from representing the DC Music Summit. And she and DC Music Summit also provides quite a lot of education and resources. Maybe Cynthia, I don't know if you want to. I don't want to put you on the spot if you want to talk about that at all, but you're welcome to.
Yeah, and hit me up as well. Since you know I did a lot of artist management. I've been in the area for almost 30 years, so I have some other resources that I can help you with. But just reach out to me offline.
Is that you, Danny? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm on my iPhone, so I'm not. I think I can type my cell phone or email maybe in the chat. Would that work, or what should I do?
Yeah,
That works as well.
You can use the chat, and you can chat someone directly, so that not everyone sees it. But thank you for coming on, Ryan. Appreciate you
Thanks.
sharing. I wanted to just circle back to something Maria said, and you kind of brought up about, you know, how do we acknowledge local music more? How do we get more of an appreciation, you know, within the greater community for what's happening locally? And I remember a conversation that I had. I was on a panel in Arlington County with some of the folks that work in the arts space within the government, and they were talking about the exciting festival that they were putting on, music festival that they were putting on, and you know, they had this amazing Brazilian band that they were bringing in from Brazil, and it's going to be, you know, this cultural event. And I, you know, sort of boldly said on the microphone, I said, so that's wonderful, but did you know that we have some incredible talent right here in Arlington, and they could use a platform to showcase their music? And it goes to something that's been discussed, I think, in other fora, which is that, you know, if you've got a festival happening and you're bringing in other bands, that there should be a local opener at the very least attached to that. And certainly we can put on our own festival, and that's one of the things Danny and I have talked about is, you know, a local music. There are plenty of you know, smaller festivals going on, and you know, things that well, there used to be more, and pandemic, you know, put a you know, a damper on that for a while, but you're seeing more of them happen. There's a Nova Music Fest happening at a winery in Loudoun County this coming weekend. There are benefit concerts, and I think, you know, we could do something even bigger. So be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Those of you who, like Sean, who's one of our board members, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how a festival would kind of play in this market, you know, but something that was really equally representing genres across the board and all of the DMV. So these are things I think we need to do, because some people just don't realize. They don't realize, you know, what we have like right under their noses. So
Yeah. William, you have your hand raised. Do you want to chime in? William, you there?
William, looks like are you frozen?
Muted.
No, I think William's frozen.
Okay.
That looks like William from WOOK Radio, and we'll come back to you, William. Maybe you want to sign off and come back. But yeah, radio, which we haven't talked about yet, really in any you know, great sense. But yeah, radio is still very much you know, a great way to get discovered. You know, Sirius XM it's got headquarters here. We have possible synergies there. So I think there's untapped potential for local radio. There's low power FM. There's you know, there's a bunch of opportunities there. So I want to just go ahead.
Sorry, Dave. I just want to mention as well, you know, college radio. We are a college town, And one of the things that I want to do is put together, street teams that work with all the colleges and the college radios and things along those lines. So there's a lot of things that we can do here in this area. We just need to do it. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, did anyone else want to say anything at the moment before I move on?
I would make a
Didn't work. Something's wrong.
Are you able to hear me?
Jay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. The number of organizations that already exist, the number of venues, recording studios, and everything that exists. What is the plan, and how is the Music Alliance going to create a sense among and between and through those that this isn't an insular or isolated organization, and that you are actually creating an ecumenical experience for everyone? Because I think that's really important to the growth and development of something like this. That a lot of people who start organizations, and I'm involved in too many of them, I'll tell you right now, they end up getting insulated in their mission, and they start to be competitive with other entities, and I think that's one of the things that has restricted the growth and development of the DC music scene. Does the Alliance have a policy and are you thinking about that, and do you have a plan to sort of keep that sort of instant hardening of the arteries from occurring in your development?
That's a wonderful question. So we've spent a long time thinking about that, and there at first we developed, our first name was the DMV Music Coalition, and we sort of imagined ourselves as an umbrella organization where you would have a membership, and we would sort of facilitate things across the board, and then quickly realized that there are so many other institutions, there's so many efforts going on. We just really wanted to be the glue and the connective tissue between all of them. And as I said before, we don't have a particular policy agenda. We recognize that there is a diversity of opinions about how things should be done. We have things that rise to the level of regional concerns that are more global in nature that we can address. So where we have common issues and common opportunities to work together as a regional effort, that's where we want to get involved. But recognizing that we have unique communities of color with different ethnicities, different genres, and all of those need to be respected. So the idea behind this is not one of homogeneity, if you will, but one of unity and one of diversity. And so it is a tall order. It is ambitious. We have had some folks question, how are we going to achieve this? Because people have different, dogs in the race. We don't see this as a race. We see this as an opportunity to connect, to work together, and we see this as something that we can all benefit from if we pool our talent, pool our resources, and help each other out. So how do we do that? We need all of you to help us do that, because it can't just be me and it can't just be Danny. It's got to be a spirit of collaboration. You got to spread the word about what we're trying to do and say, for example, yesterday I was on DMV Musicians Facebook group, and somebody who I'm familiar with, an artist in the area, said, man, I really would love to know what shows are going on in the area. And is there one place I can go to find all that? And I said, that's something we're building. And it came from input that was fed to us. And we said, let's build the tech, let's make it happen. So where there are gaps in the infrastructure, where there's a dearth of knowledge, where there's a lack of communication, Jay, I'm freaking out because I see 2 views of you.
I just got off the road, so I'm signing into a computer.
Awesome. You know, that's where we want to add value. And we're all about doing that, not coming in and saying, you know, you're doing this wrong, you know, let's learn from the successes, and let's make it so that everyone is equally represented. And yeah, that we're going to have to work out the details on the practical application of that. This is our first meeting. This is our first foray, and we don't have all the answers right now. But we do know that all of you being here is a really great sign, and it means that, you know, we can count on a lot of you for input and support, and that we've got some folks that really see the value in that kind of unity. So I hope that addressed your question. It's, you know.
Well, no, I just, it's something I sort of want to put that bug in your ear. It's going to be something you're going to be dealing with for years as you do this. And the second thing I want to say is thank you very much for all of the effort you're putting into this and the effort you're proposing to put in this. And I'm tired just thinking about what you're going to have to do this year.
Well, thank you. I'm tired too, but excited. So, yay, adrenaline. Anyone else have any thoughts before I move on?
Yeah, Dave, this is PJ. Good to see you.
Hey.
Hey. So, well, first of all, this is really exciting, and I don't know how many others are in the bucket, but I'm one of those that like has a day job that does not scratch my creative itch, and being a musician on the side really does, and part of it is playing, but also part of it is the community of it, and getting to play shows with others, and just having a music network. So I think it's really exciting. I don't know what feedback is like most helpful to you guys at this point. I will say, like, I would love to be involved in like whatever way is helpful, but it does seem like you're taking on a lot, and there's overlap in bits and pieces with things other people or other organizations are doing in the area, which isn't necessarily a problem, like, let 1,000 flowers bloom or whatever. But in terms of like getting things rolling, I wonder if it may be better to focus on like just one, like, let's solve one problem first. And once we figure that out and get some momentum, like, let's move on to the second. Cause just off the first glance, it seems like there are 7 maybe categories of things, from like, there's the tech aspect, there's like government relations, there's a public affairs aspect, there's, advocacy at its venues, networking with other musicians, producing a festival, probably some other ideas. So like, not necessarily a problem, but definitely a lot.
Totally, fair point. And that's why, we have a business plan that outlines those priorities. And the first 3 priorities, what I mentioned earlier, are really what all we're focusing on right now: the financial assistance, so the short-term, grants that we're going to be able to offer. And then so more of the outreach and bringing people into more of a unified mindset, and then gathering some information about who is in the community. And so you're right, and we've taken a year to get to this place because we didn't want to bite off too much too quickly. That being said, you can see that we have different teams set up, and I want to talk in a second about how we need to activate people to actually take on different roles, because it is going to require a lot of people to make all these things happen. And so where, for example, the advocacy is happening a lot with the DMV music stakeholders. An educational summit is happening, with Cynthia and Dior and Megan with the DC Music Summit. We're part of that. We're supportive of that. We don't need to reinvent that. We're not going to compete with that. We're going to embolden those efforts. And so we're looking at the makeup and the landscape, and we're trying to say what exists, what's working. Great, that's working. Let's make it even better. And where there are gaps, let's fill those gaps. And we're going to stand up teams to be able to do that. So on that note, I actually want to launch another poll, and this is going to be kind of apropos of what you're asking, what are the things that are priority issues for you? What would you like to see us do first? Cool. So far, people valuing networking referrals more than cash. All right.
Hey, Dave, can I say a couple things?
Of course.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Cecily. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm Cecily. I'm a vocalist and a songwriter and a voice teacher as well. And I wanted to say that I think my vote for that poll was the financial assistance, because I think that obviously the pandemic really made it clear where the holes were. But at the same time, that was something that already existed. For instance, I know a bass player who broke his wrist, so he couldn't play for 6 to 8 weeks. So I had a couple questions regarding the financial assistance and grants. I wanted to know, what criteria will make people eligible? Like, do you have to play a certain, and of course you guys could still be figuring this out, but would you have had to play a certain number of gigs in the area to apply? And also, how quickly will it be available? Like, will some grants be more, like we'll give out, is it all emergency funding at this point? And the other thing I wanted to add to that is that, we've been talking mostly about working musicians, but I think the elders in our community often get left out of that conversation. The retired musicians who have gigged their whole lives, and now either they can't gig, or because they're older, or because of some physical ailment, or they're still gigging only because they have to and they wish they could retire. And I've always wished that there was more that we could do as a community to support our elders and our retired musicians. And I think that that is a hole that really does need to be filled. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Such great points. Thank you. Definitely agree with all of that. I think that, there's going to be a lot of competition for grants, for grant money for sure. And I think that realistically, we are going to preference folks who are actively working in the music scene, just because they're at the beginning of their career, or they're trying to make things work. Whereas people, who are older maybe have potentially pensions, or they have, retirement accounts or things like that. Whereas, a 25-year-old doesn't have any of that. They just have they're faced with the situation of maybe like college debt, and then they're looking at, how do I move forward in my career? So I think that, to be frank, we're gonna orient it towards the actively working musicians. However, it is really important for us to try to be fair and equitable with all of this. We're going to look at a combination of factors, and I can actually share with you. I don't think I'm going to share it right now, just to kind of keep the conversation flowing as we wrap, get toward the end here. But I can share with all of you our template, our draft template for the grant application, which is a need-based application. We in the future may be looking at doing a project-based type grant, but at the moment it's more about just financial stability for people who are struggling. So there's going to be a lot of information that we're gathering about your budget and your expenses and all of that. That being said, we're also going to look at a number of factors, like are we distributing this across the region equitably, and not just focusing on particular lower income neighborhoods per se. So it's a difficult thing, but we're being very thoughtful about it. We're seeking a lot of input. We're using templates and best practices from other grant programs like Music Cares, and others. So I think what we'll want to do is just refine that a little bit with all of your input, maybe through a town hall. We'll make it an agenda item in a town hall, and then we'll present that back to the community. But in terms of when the money would be available, at the moment, the only thing we have on the horizon is a GoFundMe campaign we're not sure of the platform yet, but it'll be something like that, to just raise a little bit of money to offer 1 or 2 grants. The larger funding is going to take a while, because what we're going to need is to really rely on you all and all of your extended networks to try to go out to, frankly, outside of the music community, where the money is. We need to figure out, there needs to be a program that we're going to help institute on how we develop our value and present ourselves professionally to the world. And when we do that, we present ourselves as individuals and as a community, as part of a robust music scene that's worthy of investment. So that's going to take some time. And then there's also going to be some training we're going to provide on how to actually contact people in your networks, whether it's from your church or family, friends, work, and actually make the ask, because we're not necessarily going to make you all, fundraisers, but you're going to have to be able to speak to some folks. And really, we may only need 1 or 2 main donors to actually get a decent amount of funding that can float the careers of a few people. Like, we can actually, if we find some benefactors, like 1 or 2 might just cut it. So we're looking for, instead of looking at, $10 donations from 1,000 people, we're probably looking at, maybe fewer people with a greater spend. So anyway, we can get more into that, but I hope that answered some of your question. We're trying to be very thoughtful about it. Other questions before we go on? I want to talk a little bit about how you can get involved and kind of what the next steps are. Okay, cool. So sharing the screen again. Whoa, that is not the screen I wanted. And
it's really small. You can see that.
Hold on, working on it. There, how's that?
Very small.
Nope. Working on it again. And boom. Cool.
That's good.
So, ways to get involved: team member, team leader, area liaison, advisory board member, sponsor. Let's break these down. So, what are teams? So for each of our 6 organizational goals, there's a team that's specifically tasked with advancing its objectives. So those goals, if you remember: unite in harmony, gather information, provide financial support, be a trusted resource, advocate, and demonstrate value. So, essentially what we're going to be asking people to do is work on the core activities of those goals, and also asking people to help with, as I just said, fundraising and reaching out to your networks, engaging with the community to make sure they attend town halls so we can hear from them, that they're aware that there's this platform for them to be heard and their voices can be heard, and we can be more responsive to them, to take the survey so we really understand who we're talking to and serving. Developing and soliciting new blog and educational content from the community. We need fresh content to keep things up to date and not stale, so people keep coming back. Keeping abreast of issues, concerns, opportunities around the area, and again, spreading the word about the Alliance so we can help more people. So team leaders are kind of what it sounds like. They're going to facilitate team meetings, and it seemed that have some responsibility to make sure the team is on track to meet its objectives. Obviously, this is an all volunteer effort at this point, so we're going to be relying on people devoting their time, and we appreciate all of the time that anyone can. But if you do take on a role, then we hope that you'll commit to it for a period of time, and that you'll be able to make some good progress while you're involved. The team leaders will also take the feedback from their teams and advocate for and sort of compare notes with other jurisdictions and neighborhoods in the area. So again, this is that whole idea of being that connective tissue. Area liaisons, it's similar to a team member. You're kind of responsible for a particular focus area, and that is your geographical area. So if you've got someone who maybe is focused on Anacostia, someone who may be focused on Loudoun County, there may be, we have to figure out, the breakdown, sort of how much of a surface area / population we need, is realistic for someone to take on. And then we need to find some people who are willing to kind of report back on, hey, this is going on. I know, I remember Chris Matthews, going and fighting some issues in Herndon about, issues with venues there. That is the kind of thing we need, is some people to tap into what is going on in these specific jurisdictions, these specific communities. And if there's a solution that someone else has already come up with in a different area, let's tap into that success story, those lessons learned, and leverage that to hopefully not reinvent the wheel every time and feel like we're just sort of disconnected and siloed. Advisory board. So the advisory board is not a wide open position, as a volunteer. There's going to be some, the board of directors is going to determine who will be on the advisory board, but we are definitely interested in hearing from you if you are interested in being on the advisory board. And what that means essentially is helping to steer the direction and priorities of the Alliance. There are no formal legal responsibilities as there would be with the board of directors. There's no official decision-making authority, but it's just a board that gets to sort of discuss at a more leadership level, where we should be heading as an organization. So it's a little more focused on, internal organizational priorities. And then sponsorship. So this can take a number of forms, but certainly, companies, organizations, individuals who want to either provide in-kind services or financial assistance, contributions to what we're doing to help us carry out the mission of what we're trying to do. And so again, this is where we're going to need to enlist all of you to reach out to your networks and just grow the pie, as we said. I think I credit Joe from Songbird for, I think, that term. He used that with us last year. So next action steps. You can click, well, you don't have this presentation yet, but I can send it to you. So message me if you would like a copy of this. But anyway, you can just go to dmvmusicalliance.org, dmvmusicalliance.org, and then at the top, go to Get Involved, and then join us, and you can submit, if there's a form where you could submit, your information and tell us how you'd like to get involved. And then really the next thing is spreading the word and attending our first virtual town hall that we've been talking about, which will be July 7th at 7:30 p.m. This will be a virtual event. We have a Facebook page that has the details on that. There's an event there that you can pre-register for. It's obviously it's a Zoom call, so we just like to get a sense of how many people are attending and make sure that we're getting the word out. So you can email us with any questions or thoughts to get involved. info@dmvmusicalliance.org. That'll go to Danny and myself. And let me just throw it to Danny to see if she has anything else to share at this point, just before we wrap.
I don't. I think we've covered, all of the big pieces. There's a lot to it, as one of you have mentioned, but we are working on it. We're at least, so, but it's going to take the help of the community to accomplish these goals that we're trying to work on. Some of you have already reached out to us via Facebook. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And, just thank you for joining us today and for making this launch happen.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you coming.
Everyone unmute and applaud, please, now for Danny and Dave.
Thank
Thank
you. Bill.
you.
Oh, there's Miles.
Thank
Hey.
you for all the info, guys. This was very great.
Thank you guys all for being here. And, we know this isn't going to be easy, but we think it's worth going for it. And so just stay tuned. Marty, did you want to say anything? Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah. This is tremendous. I want to thank you guys for all your effort. It's tremendously ambitious and certainly a worthwhile goal. A couple things come to mind that I wanted to offer.
Sure.
We're talking about, you've been talking about and thinking about venues, performance venues and such, which is perfect. But let's keep in mind that a huge, some of the people who have been tremendously supportive of the local music scene have been houses of worship in our area. They use local musicians all the time and put on concerts. I'm thinking like Westminster and Southeast, All Souls in Northeast, Sixth and I. Well, they've been bringing in outside acts, but even for just a typical Sunday, houses of worship, many houses of worship hire local musicians, and they pay them well, and that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. Another thing is the engineering workforce, sound mixers, crew people, they would be very interested in this effort too, because their livelihood relies on this as well. The third thing that I was curious about is online performance opportunities. I think that during COVID, one of the things that we've seen is that so much can now happen online that we didn't believe could happen before or done very well or effectively. And when you think about performance, any venue can fit maybe a couple hundred people, maybe more, but if marketed well, so many people who wouldn't want to attend a show online, in person, could attend online. If it's done well, is very attractive and can be revenue generating, expand the market for the venue, for the artist. It's a real opportunity. A lot of what we've seen, or what I've seen, hasn't been done particularly well. Some of it has, like I'm thinking, what Blue Room has been doing has been really nice, but a lot of it has been really less than satisfactory. And the technology right now has just been blossoming with ways to do it really well.
All great points. Yes. So glad you brought that stuff up. And that's the thing, we have all these opportunities in front of us. We just need the ideas, and we need to connect those ideas with folks who can actually implement them. And we want to be the force that sets that stuff up. So yes, it's a pivot moment for venues, for, I think there's probably varying opinions about whether they want, whether they would support a lot of investment in online concerts. However, it needs to be something that, because I think that that's not going away. Now that everyone's figured out how to live stream, I see Eli Lev nodding. We could talk to Eli about this all day. There's a lot of opportunity there, but it needs to make sense. It needs to make business sense for the venues. Guys, this has been such a great conversation, and we're a little past time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time and say thank you once again. The conversation will continue. Please come. Jay, are you waving or saying? Just saying goodbye. So I want to thank you all again. Please go to our Facebook page, DMV Music Alliance.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Ken has been raising his hand. He's been wanting to say something for a while.
I know.
Oh,
I
okay.
appreciate that. I'm happy.
If we're on a time constraint, that's cool.
Well, we're just past time, so I just want to, Ken, do you have something quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've attended a number of virtual events. A lot of them were free, you know, there was a tip jar or whatever in other countries, you know, originating in other countries. And that's been really great for me. I'm going to be 70 in October. Going to physical things is not going to happen in the near future. I suspect that the online gig situation will continue. The only other ironic thing about that is I will always prefer physical CDs. I don't subscribe to streaming services and I don't like downloads. But thanks for listening and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Okay, guys, please join us at our first town hall, July 7th, 7:30 p.m. If you need any more information, please let us know. info@dmvmusicalliance.org. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Dave,
Yeah.
should I just hang on and talk with you, or you have to go somewhere too?
Let's talk. Let's find another time to talk.
Okay.
I'll put my contact in the chat here.
Okay.
I'm not available right now, but yes.
Okay, cool.
All
Thanks.
right, guys. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ryan, if you email us at that email, both Dave and I get it, and we can respond with some tips
Okay.
for you.
Cool. And what is that again? The DMV Alliance?
I just put it in the chat. Oh, sorry. That was actually no. Let me do that to everyone. Hold on.
info@dmvmusicalalliance.org.
Yes.
There it is. You
Yeah.
see it
Okay.
now?
Just use that email.
That's it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
See ya.
All right.